This is a Dynamite Network podcast.
Hi, welcome to the Dynamic Duel podcast, a weekly show where we review superhero films and debate the superiority between Marvel and DC by comparing their characters in stat-based battle simulations. I'm Johnny DC.
And I'm his twin brother, Marvelous Joe.
And in this episode, we are doing another team duel, this time between the Legion of Superheroes and the New Mutants.
Yeah, my guys have actually had a movie.
Hey, my guys have had a movie?
What?
Yeah, it was animated.
Oh, yeah, it was called The Legion of Superheroes starring Supergirl. That's right.
And?
Yeah, but it didn't have most of the Prime Legionnaires, at least not the main ones like Cosmic Boy and Saturn Girl and Lightning Glad.
You know what the New Mutants movie didn't have?
What?
An audience.
You're not wrong, but I thought it was a pretty decent film. You could listen to our review of that. It's a great set of characters, the New Mutants, and a lot of them, as they've gotten older, have powered up from their original power limitations. So I think this is going to be a good match.
Yeah, it's actually the same for the Legion of Superheroes. Both teams started off as teenagers, but they have had some growth in the comics, or at least the Legion would have if they wouldn't keep rebooting themselves. Their background is very convoluted, but we'll get more into that later on in this episode. Before that, we're going to break down the comic book movie news from the past week, of which we have two news items. One is a report that was done by Variety talking about the current state of film franchises, including Marvel and DC. That was pretty interesting to read. And we also got another trailer for Marvel Zombies.
As always, we list our segment times in our episode description, so feel free to check out the show notes if you want to skip ahead to a particular topic. Guys, our artificially intelligent duel simulator, AJ9K, has a quick message for our listeners, so listen up.
Why, hello there. Do you want even more from this podcast? Then become a part of the Dynamic Duel community on Patreon, where you can choose from 3 tiers. The Dynamic 2.0 tier gives you access to our Discord chat server, the Fantastic 4 tier gives you 2 bonus episodes each month, and the X-Force tier makes you an executive producer of this show. Lastly, the Dynamite Podcast Network tier lets you create your own podcast using this Monte Carlo simulator. Johnny and Joe will help you develop your show, provide graphic support and consultation, and get you simulation results. Pitch the twins your ideas via email at dynamicduelpodcast@gmail.com. Check it out at patreon.com/dynamicduel. Pip pip cheerio.
Thanks, AJ9K, and thanks to everyone who supports the podcast. Be sure to tune into the other shows on the Dynamite Podcast Network this week, including the Console Combat Podcast, where hosts John and Dean simulate battles between popular video game characters. In yesterday's episode, the two determined who would win in a rematch episode between Samanosuke Akichi from Onimusha and Ryu Hayabusa from Ninja Gaiden.
Over on the Max Destruction podcast, hosts Scotty and Gilly pit your favorite action heroes from film and television against each other. On Wednesday, they're going to find out who would win in a fight between Adonis Creed, Apollo's son, and Rocky, both from the Rocky franchise.
I don't know if I want to know the answer to that. On the Senjo World podcast, host Zachary Hepburn speculates on fights between fan-favorite anime and manga characters. Next episode, Zach is reviewing the series To Be Hero X.
Visit dynamicpodcasts.com or click the link in our show notes to listen to all the shows in the Dynamite Podcast Network. But with that out of the way,
quick to the No Prize.
A No Prize is an award that Marvel used to give out to fans. Our version, the Dynamic Duel No Prize, is a digital award we post on Instagram for the person that we feel gave the best answer to our question of the week. Last week, we asked you guys, who do you want the villain for Man of Tomorrow to be, and why? And of course, this is coming off the news that the Superman movie is getting a sequel in 2027 titled Man of Tomorrow. We got quite a few answers. Let's go ahead and run down our honorable mentions as well as the No Prize winner. Our first honorable mention goes to Travis Herndon, who said,
"What's up, Dynamic Dudes? Travis here. Shout out to my evil twin. So my pick would be Metallo. I think he'd be a nice, grounded villain for a Superman sequel. We never seen him before in the live-action movie. You could have the story be that Lex created him, and only for him to go overboard, forcing Lex and Superman to have a very shaky alliance to take Metallo down. He's a very interesting, badass villain, and he can be a threat to both Lex and Superman."
So James Gunn did confirm in an interview with Howard Stern last week that in the Man of Tomorrow film, Superman and Lex Luthor would be teaming up to stop a greater threat. And I could see that being Metallo, especially if you go the route that Travis mentioned, where Lex Luthor is responsible for his creation, but he kind of goes against his creator, and now him and Superman have to team up to stop what he created.
Yeah, it could be like the Age of Ultron of the Superman franchise, right? And Metallo isn't that powerful, but he is to Superman because he has the kryptonite, and he can be, a formidable foe against a human like Lex Luthor. So yeah, I could see this, and I like the idea of it.
It's also cool because we haven't seen Metallo as a villain on the big screen yet, so why not?
Great answer, Travis. Our next honorable mention goes to, we don't know because they didn't submit their name. But yeah, let's give it a listen.
Joe, how's it going, guys? Man of Tomorrow, I think, should have Brainiac as the villain. We've never really seen him in live action, at least not done, not really in a proper way. And given that there's going to be multiple other superheroes, I think it's a great opportunity to bring in a bigger villain like that. I think it's too early for Darkseid, but I would also like to see Parasite or Metallo, someone who's not just going to be a big brute fight for Superman.
Now, actually, Brainiac was the most common answer that we received, and he's honestly the villain that I have most wanted to see Superman face on the big screen in, forever. It still surprises me that we haven't seen him fight Brainiac yet in a movie. He's such a great villain.
Yeah, and he definitely raises the stakes enough to warrant a Superman-Lex Luthor team-up. So good answer, whoever you are, whoever answered. Be sure, guys, to leave your name when you leave an answer, either in the field that asks for your name or in the call itself. Our final honorable mention goes to Dylan DeWitt, who said,
Hey, guys. Dylan DeWitt here. Big fan of the show. Thanks for what you guys do. Right to the chase. Man of Tomorrow should have Brainiac as the villain. We haven't really had a big screen adaptation of the character, and I think that if they're going to have multiple characters and Lex and Superman teaming up, then Brainiac would be the most obvious choice for that. I could also see Cyborg Superman or Parasite, somebody like that.
Now, Dylan mentioned Brainiac, but he also mentioned Cyborg Superman, who of course is a villain that tied into Superman's death and the whole reign of the Superman saga in the comics that I am still waiting to see adapted in live action. I think that would be a fantastic film. Probably not for Man of Tomorrow, considering it seems like the premise of that is that Superman and Lex are teaming up. But maybe for the film after that, we could explore characters like Steel, like the Eradicator, like Superboy, and Cyborg Superman.
What do you think about Parasite as an option? I think that could be a good one, especially if it's like a version of Parasite that grows big, like a kaiju, like Godzilla or something like that, like how he did in Superman Man of Tomorrow, the animated movie. And Lex and Superman teamed up to stop him in that film as well.
That's true. Who knows? Maybe that's why the film is called Man of Tomorrow.
Because it's a straight adaptation of the animated film.
I hope not. Did not love that film. But great answer, Dylan. We want to give a quick shout out to Noah Terry and Lorenzo Valdez.
But the winner of this week's No Prize is Alex Albro, who said,
Hey guys, if this chapter really is about gods and monsters, I think this film would be a good one to start to introduce a villain like Perpetua and Barbados and people like that. It could lead eventually to a Crisis storyline if you wanted it to, but also I think it could just get into the greater origin of the multiverse and make this DC a bit more whimsical and fantastical than previous iterations. It may not be punk rock, but it could be metal.
Is that an allusion to Dark Knight's metal?
Yes, of course, the characters of Perpetua and Barbados were introduced in the Dark Knight's Metal comics storyline, along with the introduction of the Dark Multiverse, which I feel like you can't really explain until you get into the multiverse. Perpetua is a character that definitely falls within the Gods and Monsters theme that James Gunn has set up for the kickoff of the DCU. But I do feel like it's a lot to get to. The Dark Multiverse is a deep cut. As cool as it is, I feel like it would need a lot of setup going into it.
And James Gunn will just cover it through a bunch of text in the first minute of his movie. That's all the exposition you need.
Honestly, I kind of believe it. Now, Alex gets the win because he gave an original answer, but also because he was bold enough to suggest something like Perpetua, the creator of the DC Universe itself in the comics.
Yeah, that would be a wild battle for sure. But congrats, Alex. You win this week's No Prize. If you, the listener, want a shot at winning your own No Prize, stay tuned to later on this episode when we'll be asking another question of the week. And now that that's done,
on to the news.
All right, this past week, Variety, a Hollywood news outlet, released a report that commented on Hollywood's biggest franchises and where they currently stand in comparison to the past 10 years. Marvel and DC were highlighted in this report, as well as other popular franchises like James Bond and Star Wars, the Jurassic Park movies, Mission Impossible, Hunger Games, and Star Trek. It was interesting to see how specifically the MCU and the DC franchises currently compare to how they have in the 2010s. They have a lot of infographics up on there, so I'm going to try to do my best to explain it. But overall, the state of Marvel is that while the Marvel franchise currently has the biggest share of market saturation out of all the franchises, just because of all the content that Disney is putting out there with Marvel, Marvel's actually slipping compared to the 2010s in that their box offices are going down. However, fortunately, the report says that because Marvel's budgets are also going down, that the return on Marvel's films is staying relatively level.
Yeah, they don't have to pay Robert Downey Jr. anymore. Oh, wait.
Yeah, but the report comments that the Avengers movie is basically bulletproof. It's going to make a load of money, but they could also signal to moviegoers that they can afford to skip the in-between films and just stick around for the Avengers movies.
Right, especially this go-around, because it doesn't seem like there was too much setup for the Avengers, at least compared to the films in the last decade.
Right.
Now, whereas Marvel had more commercial potential, DC had more creative health, in surprise to no one. Of course, that has a lot to do with James Gunn, who jumped ship from Marvel to DC, and we're going to see just how much influence apparently James Gunn had on Marvel now that he's gone and is ramping up the DC universe on screen. His Superman movie did fantastic out the gate. Not only was it a critical success, but it was also a commercial success, at least domestically. But then again, DC is also making inroads in the global box office as well, according to this report.
Yeah, when you compare the box office return of the Superman movie that came out this year to the past 10 years of DC films, yeah, DC's box office is up currently, as well as their return on budget, because Superman was made for a little bit less than what they were making the previous DC movies. So everything's looking great for DC right now. The state of the franchise is in good shape, and Marvel is looking a little bit shaky. But then again, we all know that the Avengers is going to make $1 billion, and Marvel is going to take back its crown at the movies.
I feel like I heard that exact same thing when you were talking about Fantastic Four, which you owe me money, motherfucker.
You don't know that yet. Fantastic Four has not exited theaters yet, so we'll talk then.
We know. There's no way it's going to catch up.
Anyway, on the topic of film franchises, that brings us to our question of the week. Besides Marvel and DC, what is your favorite film franchise of all time, and why? Record your answer at dynamicduel.com by clicking on the red microphone button in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen, which will prompt you to leave us a voicemail. Your message could be up to 30 seconds long, and don't forget to leave your name in case we include you on the podcast. We'll pick our favorite answer and award that person a Dynamic Duel No Prize that we'll post to Instagram. Be sure to answer before September 20th. In other Marvel news, we got the second trailer for the upcoming Marvel Zombies animated series. It's actually a miniseries. It's only 4 episodes. That's going to start streaming on September 24th. The last trailer we got was off-the-wall bonkers, insane, and so damn cool with the soundtrack and everything like that. This second trailer takes things a little bit more epic and serious. A lot of the first episode looks like it's going to play out exactly like the World War Z movie, where we see Shang-Chi and Katie in the streets of San Francisco, fleeing from the zombie outbreak, and you have like a bunch of zombies like leaping off buildings and shit to try to eat people. It looks like absolute madness, and I am totally here for it. Because they didn't really show too many of those scenes in the What If Marvel Zombies episode. You know, it was more of like a slow build, more of like a Night of the Living Dead as opposed to a World War Z, and I really like the apocalyptic approach that World War Z took to the start of its zombie apocalypse. It does look like some of these zombies gain sentience and can talk, which of course is true to the Marvel Zombies comic book series, where the zombies could reason and talk. And that's really what made them so dangerous. And eventually the Marvel Zombies ended up taking over the whole universe and spreading into the multiverse.
Yeah, that's interesting. I like the way that this trailer kind of sets up a little bit of who the good guys are and who the bad guys are. We definitely know some of the good guys are going to probably be zombified, but it's going to be interesting to see which ones survive.
Yeah, it looks like an all-out war between the last remaining survivors and the legions of undead that come after them, which is not a common approach in zombie films. You don't usually see like battlefronts of zombies against survivors. I think it's going to be pretty interesting, though. Really looking forward to seeing how this plays out. It's going to be a great time this Halloween season, which is quickly approaching us. And as we said last time, we won't be reviewing the miniseries, but we will definitely be discussing our thoughts on it in this show.
But that does it for all of the news for this episode, so let's go ahead and move on to our main event, which is the team duel between DC's Legion of Superheroes from the 31st century and the New Mutants from the 21st century. Alright, Legion of Superheroes versus the New Mutants, as we explained earlier. These are both super teams of young heroes who are kind of fulfilling a legacy. In regards to the Legion, who exist in the 31st century, it's the legacy of the superheroes of the 21st century. And for the New Mutants, it's the legacy of the X-Men.
Yeah, they have that theme in common, I guess, the same way that Young Justice and the Young Avengers do. That was a previous Duel episode that we did. But the New Mutants are decades older than the Young Avengers team. Same with the Legion of Superheroes. I think these teams first debuted like back in the 80s and 70s, if I'm not mistaken.
It was actually the 1950s for the Legion.
Whoa, okay. Yeah, well, the New Mutants were the 80s. I thought the Legion just went back to the 70s, but I was wrong. The 50s, that is an old team. And they've probably been rebooted once per decade since their inception.
Too many times. Way too many times. I tried to make sense of it for my write-up on their history, but yeah, they've gone through more reboots than the DC universe has, for sure.
Well, the future is always changing, right? So maybe that makes sense.
I think that's how they justify it.
Well, let's get into these teams' backstories. First, to explain the methodology behind our duels, let's go to our sentient duel simulator, Alfred Jarvis 9000. AJ9K, tell our listeners how you go about determining a winner in our duel matchups.
Yes, of course, sir. The way I determine a winner between the two teams is by running 1,000 Monte Carlo simulations between every character on each team using their statistics. A Monte Carlo simulation is a probabilistic model used to determine outcomes through random sampling. In this case, I randomize the statistics along a normal distribution as a way to simulate the many variables that can occur during battle. The stat parameters are based on the official Marvel Power Grid, from which the DC characters' statistics are extrapolated. Additional stat categories are included such as range, damage potential, versatility, and perception in order to create a more detailed and accurate simulation. The results of the 49,000 simulations provide a percentage of wins for each character on both teams. The team with the higher average win rate is declared the victor, as they have a higher probability to win any given battle. In an equitable pairing, neither team should win 100% of the matches. The comic book stories have shown that there's even a way for Batman to defeat Superman, so the confidence rate of my method falls in line with the precedents that have been established in the source material. My mathematical simulations are without subjectivity or bias. Feats are not the sole consideration, nor are fan votes tabulated for determination of the winner.
Thanks, AJ9K. Before we run the simulations, though, we'd like to break down each team's histories and rosters before improvising a scenario on how we imagine one of the thousands of simulations would play out beat for beat. And I believe it's my turn to go first with the Marvel team backstory, so let me tell you all about the New Mutants. The New Mutants were assembled when Professor Charles Xavier believed his X-Men had died battling the alien brood. You can learn more about the X-Men in our Titans vs. X-Men Duel episode. Though despondent and unwilling to endanger more children, Xavier was persuaded by Dr. Moira McTaggart to train young mutants so they would not face threats alone. He first recruited Chian Khoi Man, aka Karma, a Vietnamese refugee who could possess others' minds. She was soon joined by Rain Sinclair, aka Wolfsbane, recruited from a mob in Scotland, and Danielle Moonstar, a Cheyenne girl with the ability to project illusions of people's fears and desires. From Brazil, they brought in Roberto da Costa, aka Sunspot, who could draw power from sunlight, while in Kentucky, they encountered Sam Guthrie, aka Cannonball, who could propel himself in an impenetrable shield. At Xavier's School for Gifted Youngsters, the New Mutants trained in the use of their newfound abilities while adjusting to life as students and young heroes. They battled government agents from Project Wide Awake and their Sentinels, and confronted Xavier himself after his infection by a brood embryo compelled him to manipulate the New Mutants into becoming hosts. With the X-Men's return from space, both teams fought together to save Xavier, ultimately restoring his mind to a new body. The New Mutants then continued their training alongside their X-Men mentors. You can learn more about Professor X in his duel against the Doom Patrol's chief. The New Mutants faced personal and supernatural challenges. Karma went missing during a battle against Viper and Silver Samurai, leaving the others to press on under Moonstar's reluctant leadership. They encountered Cloak and Dagger, fought criminals in Brazil, and traveled to Nova Roma in the Amazon, where they met Amara Aquila. After awakening her ability to control molten rock, she became Magma and joined the team. Around this time, Ilyana Rasputin, aka Magic, the younger sister of Colossus, reappeared from the dimension of Limbo as a sorceress now armed with the Soul Sword. She also became a full member of the New Mutants, now wielding dark magical powers in addition to her teleportation abilities. The New Mutants' first rivalry emerged with the creation of the Hellions, a separate mutant school trained by Emma Frost at the Massachusetts Academy. You can learn more about Emma Frost in our Poison Ivy vs. White Queen duel episode. During an attempt to rescue Kitty Pryde and Doug Ramsey, both of whom were captured by Emma Frost, the New Mutants discovered Doug was a mutant with the ability to decipher any language. Taking the codename Cypher, he joined the team. Soon after, the techno-organic alien Warlock arrived on Earth, fleeing his father. Warlock was accepted into the team, bonding closely with Cypher, who was able to use his power to communicate with the alien. Together, the team's growing roster faced mystical menaces such as the Demon Bear, which hospitalized Moonstar until Magic slew it with her Soul Sword. They also fought and defeated the human/alien villain known as Hybrid, alongside Rom the Space Knight. Karma eventually resurfaced after being possessed by the Shadow King, and the New Mutants fought to free her from his control. Their lives became increasingly tied to supernatural realms when the Enchantress captured them in Asgard. Scattered across that realm, the members endured personal trials. Wolfsbane fell for the Wolf Prince Hrimhari, Magma was enchanted by fairies, Cannonball labored among dwarves, Sunspot joined the Warriors 3, and Moonstar bonded with the steed Brightwind, becoming a Valkyrie. Eventually reunited, the New Mutants returned to Earth with lasting changes, particularly Moonstar's new role. You can learn more about the Enchantress and Asgard in our Enchantress vs. Enchantress duel episode. When Xavier departed for space with Lilandra, the leader of the Shi'ar alien race, Magneto assumed leadership of the school. The New Mutants were wary of being taught by their former enemy, but gradually gave him a chance. Magneto proved effective, even harsh, but tragedy struck when the Beyonder erased and resurrected the team as emotionless slaves, leaving the students with deep trauma. Emma Frost exploited this despair by manipulating Magneto into sending them to her academy, where they underwent therapy and returned to Xavier's school more resilient. As tensions grew under Magneto's leadership, the team disobeyed him to investigate Birdbrain, an experimental creature tied to the villain Animator. In the battle that followed, Doug Ramsey, Cypher, was shot and killed while saving Wolfsbane. His loss devastated the New Mutants profoundly, with Warlock, not understanding human death, actually trying to bring Cypher back by using his shape-shifting ability to animate his corpse. Ultimately, Cypher was buried and his friends said goodbye. Magic's struggle with her demonic nature worsened as Limbo became corrupted by the demon Sim, culminating in her transformation into the Dark Child during a demonic invasion of New York. To end the crisis, she sacrificed herself by erasing her older self from existence, reverting to childhood, and leaving the team without her. The New Mutants' relationship with Magneto deteriorated further as he aligned with the Hellfire Club, a secretive and influential society of wealthy elites who manipulate political and economic power while secretly advancing their own mutant-dominated agenda. Seeking independence from Magneto, the students attempted to function without him. During the X-Men's apparent death in battle with the adversary, the New Mutants drifted into darker paths. They were drawn toward the nation of Genosha, where Cameron Hodge, a mutant bigot and leader of an organization called the Right, was dedicated to exterminating mutants with advanced technology. In the conflict, Warlock was killed, and his and Cypher's remnants were absorbed into one of Hodge's technological creations. When freed, the two were merged into one being, which called itself Douglock. Wolfsbane left the New Mutants after being genetically altered by the Right, and Sunspot inherited his father's multinational company. With their ranks depleted, the team was reforged under the leadership of Cable, a time-traveling soldier who trained them for war. Alongside Boom Boom, Domino, Shatterstar, Warpath, and Feral, the New Mutants evolved into X-Force, abandoning their old team identity. You can learn more about X-Force in their duel against the Outsiders. Years later, the New Mutants concept returned at Xavier's school. Danielle Moonstar recruited new students including Wind Dancer, Wither, Prodigy, Elixir, Wallflower, and Surge. Karma and Wolfsbane served as faculty. This second New Mutant squad trained alongside their rival Hellions, clashing during competitions and crises. Relationships among them grew complicated, and following the elimination of most of the mutant population's powers by the Scarlet Witch, the squads were disbanded. Only a handful retained their powers, joining a single junior X-Men team. You can learn more about the Scarlet Witch in her duel against Zatanna. The original New Mutants eventually reunited as an independent team of X-Men. They faced the Hellfire Club's Black Queen, Selene, and her resurrected legion of undead mutants. They defended the X-Men's San Franciscan base against Bastion's Human Council and dealt with Norman Osborn's regime. You can learn more about Bastion and Norman Osborn in their respective duels against Amazo and the Joker. Internal divisions reflected the greater schism within the X-Men, as Cannonball and Karma sided with Wolverine at the Jean Grey School in New York, while the majority of the New Mutants remained with Cyclops in San Francisco. They took on new members, including Blink and X-Man, and fought villains such as Sugarman and the Elder Gods of Limbo. When the mutants established a nation on the sentient island of Krakoa, the New Mutants joined with the rest of their kind. Many of the New Mutants who had previously perished, such as Cypher and Warlock, were revived using the island's resurrection protocols. Reunited, the New Mutants lived on the Academos habitat, taking on roles as teachers and mentors. Sunspot and Moonstar recruited Magic, Karma, Wolfsbane, Cypher, Chamber, and Mondo for a mission to Shi'ar space to retrieve Cannonball. Their involvement led them to interstellar intrigue, battling the Shi'ar. Back on Krakoa, they guided students such as Armor, Glob Herman, Maxime, and Manon, who dubbed themselves the Lost Club. Under Magic and Moonstar, the new team served as a training squad for younger mutants, a reminder of the legacy of Xavier's youngest heroes. And that's the New Mutants' backstory. For this 7-member duel, I'll be starting with Mirage, Sunspot, and Magic, all of whom we've done duels with against Arrowette, Starfire, and Deadman respectively. Filling out the other 4 spots will be the New Mutants members Wolfsbane, who can transform into a large wolf with increased strength, speed, a healing factor, enhanced senses, and sharp fangs and claws. Next is Cannonball, who can surround himself with a propulsive thermochemical energy called a blast field that makes him indestructible while flying. He could also emit this energy from his body as shockwaves or directional blasts. Next is Magma, who can mentally control molten rock beneath the Earth's surface to create volcanic or seismic activity. She could also transform her body into lava and project molten rock and harden it to stone. My last member is Cypher, but merged with Warlock. Cypher has the ability to communicate and translate any language, including body language, which he can use to anticipate opponents' attacks. He could also shapeshift given Warlock's techno-organic nanophysiology, and can also control and absorb technology, and can convert organic tissue on contact into technology that he can then control. And that's my roster. To reiterate, it's Mirage, Sunspot, Magic, Wolfsbane, Cannonball, Magma, and Cypher merged with Warlock.
Okay, so to clarify, Warlock is inside of Cypher?
Yeah, due to Cypher's ability to communicate with Warlock, they are able to merge together to combine their powers, essentially. It gives Cypher an actual offensive ability, besides just, translating languages. Traditionally, when they're merged, they've been called Douglock, but that was actually when Warlock was taking on Cypher's form. And Warlock didn't have any memory of who he was as an alien. But in the modern era, when Cypher was revived, the two kind of teamed up, where it's Cypher's body with Warlock's added powers. So I'm not calling the character Douglock, I'm just calling him Cypher.
So what I'm hearing is that you're trying to cheat by introducing an 8th member by having one be inside of the other.
No, what I'm trying to do is make Cypher, who was one of the early New Mutants characters, able to stand up to Brainiac 5, who is his counterpart on the Legion of Superheroes team.
Gotcha. And we'll get more into the counterparts once I reveal my roster. Before that, let me go over the Legion of Superheroes backstory. In the 30th century, a united interstellar government known as the United Planets was formed to preserve peace across the galaxy. During a political summit, 3 superpowered teenagers, Rock Kryn of Brawl, Garth Rands of Wynneth, and Irma Ardeen of Titan, thwarted an assassination attempt on industrialist R.J. Brand, a vocal proponent of intergalactic cooperation. Inspired by the legendary superheroes of Earth's past, Brand encouraged the trio to form a team of young champions who would promote unity and defend the United Planets. Taking the codenames Cosmic Boy, Lightning Lad, and Saturn Girl, the 3 founded the Legion of Superheroes. The team's earliest missions were coordinated from a rocket-shaped clubhouse on Earth with strict membership requirements. Each hero had to possess one unique superpower. They quickly recruited other youths from across the galaxy, including Brainiac 5, Chameleon Boy, Triplicate Girl, Phantom Girl, Colossal Boy, and more. Through time travel, they saved Superboy in the 20th century, and he joined the Legion as an honorary member, followed later by Supergirl and Mon-El of Daxam, a former sister planet of Krypton. You can learn more about Supergirl in our Supergirl vs. Captain Marvel Duel episode. As the team grew in reputation and size, they became official peacekeepers of the United Planets, operating with support from the Science Police. Their base of operations evolved into a technologically advanced headquarters in Metropolis, and leadership responsibilities began rotating among members. Sub-teams emerged, including the Legion Espionage Squad and the Legion of Substitute Heroes. They faced enemies such as the Fatal Five, the Dark Circle, and the Sorcerer Mordru, and suffered tragedy with the death of founding member Lightning Lad and the sacrifice of Pharaoh Lad. The Legion endured numerous galactic conflicts, including the Earth War with the Coons and the Great Darkness Saga, which saw them battle the godlike Darkseid. Though they ultimately repelled his invasion, they lost many members doing so. In the aftermath, the Legion restructured internally, held elections for leadership, and began recruiting non-humanoid members such as Tellus and Quislet. After the Crisis on Infinite Earths altered the time stream, the original history of Superboy was erased. It was revealed that the Superboy who had joined the Legion came from a pocket dimension created by the Time Trapper to preserve their continuity. After this Superboy died in battle, Mon-El was retconned into the role of the Legion's inspirational figure, and the team continued its mission. Following the Magic Wars, the United Planets descended into disarray. Earth was covertly conquered by the Dominators, prompting the disbandment of the Legion. Years later, Chameleon Boy secretly assembled a new, more pragmatic version of the team to resist. The clandestine operation confronted covert threats and political machinations, including a battle between the sorcerers Mordru and Glorith over control of the time stream. During this period, a hidden chamber beneath the Time Institute was discovered, containing Batch SW6, teenage duplicates of the Legion who believed themselves to be the originals. These younger heroes formed their own version of the Legion as the older team fought to prevent the collapse of their reality. The Legion's fate was sealed during the 0-hour crisis when the Time Trapper revealed that the SW6 Legionnaires were not clones, but younger versions pulled from a divergent timeline. As reality destabilized, both the original Legion and their younger counterparts merged in an attempt to preserve the time stream, effectively ending their continuity. In a rebooted timeline, the Legion was reimagined once more. Still inspired by the trio's rescue of R.J. Brand, this incarnation emphasized diplomacy and unity among worlds. The founding members, Livewire, Cosmic Boy, and Saturn Girl, built a team that included updated versions of familiar faces like Apparition, Invisible Kid, Excess, and Andromeda. They earned the trust of the United Planets through key missions against White Triangle Daxamite supremacists, the terrorist network Tangleweb, and corrupt political figures such as President Chu. After a devastating encounter with the alien collective known as the Blight, a spatial rift opened during a mission pulling half of the Legion into an unknown universe. Presumed dead by those who remained, the missing members found themselves trapped by a deranged god called the Progenitor, later revealed to be Element Lad, driven mad by isolation and unchecked power over centuries. Livewire ultimately gave his life to prevent the cosmic entity Omniphagos from invading their home. The surviving Legionnaires eventually returned to their universe, only to discover Earth in ruins, the Legion disbanded, and their reputation shattered. Undeterred, they reassembled and established a new orbital headquarters known as Legion World. From there, the team fought off invasions from Robotica, who sought to impose forced evolution through a process called hypertaxis, and defended the galaxy from threats like a mind-controlled war world. Brainiac 5 ultimately defeated Robotica's leader, Computo, by allowing him to evolve beyond conquest. The Legion continued to grow, launching the Legion Corps and contending with threats like Universo and Ra's al Ghul, the latter of whom impersonated President Leland McCauley in an effort to accelerate humanity's evolution. The team narrowly averted catastrophe when Darkseid attempted to merge with his younger self to dominate time itself, and later faced the Fatal 500, an army of villains from across the universe. Following the Flashpoint event, Legion members Wildfire, Dawnstar, Tyrock, Timberwolf, Tellus, Gates, and Chameleon Girl were stranded in the 21st century after being exposed to a pathogen tied to hypertaxis, which threatened to annihilate their own timeline. While working to contain the virus, they encountered the Black Razors and Martian Manhunter, who warned them they can never return home. You can learn more about Martian Manhunter in our Martian Manhunter vs. Vision episode. Meanwhile, in the 31st century, the rest of the Legion carried on until a devastating battle with the Fatal Five forced the United Planets to disband the team. Scattered, many Legionnaires returned to their homeworlds, some joining the Science Police, while others retired. A few, like Brainiac 5, continued their work in secret. The team reunited when a cosmic entity named Infinitus threatened the multiverse. Brainiac 5 resumed leadership, and the lost Legionnaires were reintegrated into the team. They were joined by Legionnaires from alternate timelines, including Excess and Gates from Earth 247. After defeating Infinitus, the Legion re-established itself as an intergalactic peacekeeping force aware of the multiverse. In a newly converged future, the Legion was born anew in the 31st century of Earth Prime. In this world, society had grown sterile and repressive, discouraging physical contact, individual thought, and free expression. Children were tracked, monitored, and trained to conform. Against this backdrop, a small group of teen heroes defied cultural norms and formed a new Legion of Superheroes, inspired by the long-lost example of Superman. This new Legion expanded its mission beyond defense into cultural revolution. Thousands of young idealists rallied to their cause as Legionnaires, while the core team, featuring Cosmic Boy, Lightning Lad, Saturn Girl, Brainiac 5, Ultra Boy, Shadow Lass, and Timberwolf, fought authoritarian governments like Terra Firma and subversive figures like Lemnos. Supergirl briefly joined them due to a temporal displacement, while Dream Girl became a martyr whose cryptic visions had guided the team's broader purpose. After a brutal war with the Dominators, the Legion used a massive Phantom Zone projector to exile an entire planet in order to save the galaxy. When Cosmic Boy mysteriously vanished, Supergirl and later Lightning Lad stepped up to lead the Legion. The team endured internal rifts, external sabotage, and future-born invasions. Eventually, they discovered that the United Planets had been infiltrated by Ra's al Ghul and his army of genetically engineered teleporters. Ra's sought to trigger max hypertaxis on Earth by using the moon as a catalyst. The Legion and its allies defeated him and restored the moon to its rightful orbit. The most recent incarnation of the team formed when the Legion traveled back to the 21st century to recruit John Kent, Superman's son, into their ranks. This roster introduced new members like Gold Lantern, Dr. Fate, and Monster Boy, while reinventing similar characters with fresh origins and updated abilities. And that's their history so far. Now, when choosing who would represent the Legion of Superheroes for this roster, I decided to start my 7-member roster with the team's 3 founders. Cosmic Boy, the team's magnetic field manipulator and founding leader who can control metal, produce force fields, and generate EMP blasts. Saturn Girl, a powerful telepath from Titan, able to read and influence minds. And Lightning Lad, who wields devastating electrical power. Other prominent members across the Legion's history on my team are Brainiac 5, the 12th level intellect who provides unparalleled strategy and advanced tech, primarily a force field generator, and Chameleon Boy, a shape-shifting master of infiltration, deception, and surprise attacks. To represent the diverse and sometimes outright bonkers Legionnaires that make the Legion unique amongst other DC teams, I decided to add Bouncing Boy to my roster, who can inflate his rubberized body, allowing him to ricochet at high speeds and turning his body into a human wrecking ball. Finally, to represent the team's history with Superman and his family, I'm adding Supergirl, who of course possesses all of the powers of her cousin. All Legionnaires wear Legion flight rings, which grant them high-speed flight, environmental protection, such as in space, and instant communication across vast distances. And that's the Legion. To reiterate, my team consists of Cosmic Boy, Saturn Girl, Lightning Lad, Brainiac 5, Chameleon Boy, Bouncing Boy, and Supergirl.
Yeah, I like that team. I like its diverse roster. What is the deal with all of the Legionnaires' names either ending in boy, girl, lad, or lass?
That was only really during like the first wave of Legionnaires, I feel, because later on you get characters like Excess, Andromeda.
Should be called Excess Boy and Andromeda Girl, I feel like. Otherwise, it doesn't feel like a Legionnaire name. Is this why Livewire changed his name to Lightning Lad?
Well, it was Lightning Lad, then it was Livewire, then I believe his sister took on the name Livewire, and then he was back to being Lightning Lad in another reboot. It's complicated.
I think Brainiac 5 should change his name to Brainiac 5 Boy.
I think you should change your name to Marvelous Boy. Wait, that's weird. So as we've mentioned earlier, whenever we're coming up with these team battles, we don't really know too much about the other team. So to make this as fair a battle as we can make it, we like to match up individual characters on each roster who have a comparable power level that we're aware of.
Yeah, in this instance, for this team duel, we're pairing up the characters of Supergirl and Magic, who are badass warrior types, Cosmic Boy and Sunspot, who wield spectral energies, Saturn Girl and Mirage, the resident psychics of the group, Bouncing Boy and Cannonball, who can launch themselves and slam into other characters, Chameleon Boy and Wolfsbane, who can transform their bodies, Brainiac 5 and Cypher, the resident tech smart guys, and Lightning Lad and Magma, who wield elemental energies. Notice that none of the members on my team have the words boy or lass or lad in them.
No, but they would be so much cooler if they did, like Magic Lass, Sunspot Boy, Mirage Girl, heck yeah.
In a world where fantasies collide and heroes clash, one podcast network rises above the rest. Prepare yourself for the ultimate showdowns in comic books, video games, movies, and anime. The Dynamite Podcast Network presents Console Combat, where video game legends brawl every Monday. Dynamic Duel, where comic book titans smash every Tuesday. Max Destruction, where TV and action heroes battle every Wednesday. And Sendro World, where anime champions clash every Thursday. Join us as we speculate on the matches and, armed with the power of mathematical simulations, discover who will emerge victorious. Visit dynamicpodcast.com, where we settle the debate and settle the score.
But now that we've got their histories and rosters out of the way, let's speculate on how one of the thousands of simulated matches will go. The winner is determined by simulations, not this speculation, but it's fun to imagine how a fight could play out. AJ9K, what are the rules of our speculation?
Well, I should say there are no rules, other than the teams have no prior knowledge of the other going into the fight. All they are aware of starting out is that the other side is a threat that needs to be eliminated. For the speculation, the groups will begin approximately 50 meters apart in a nondescript environment that will have no bearing on the match itself, as no environmental statistics are considered in my simulations. The teams must earn victory on their own merit.
All right, then let's get into it. The Legion of Superheroes and the New Mutants meet on the battlefield. Who goes first? I'm going to say that Cannonball starts this off by blasting right into the air and then slamming down right in the middle of where the Legionnaires are. And he slams right on top of Cosmic Boy, actually, and scatters the rest of the team when he lands and creates this like massive shockwave.
Not force field. Cannonball slams right into a force field generated by Brainiac 5. who could extend his personal force field. And he's just going to quickly envelop his team right from the get-go. When Cannonball shoots into the sky, Brainiac's going to be doing all of these instantaneous calculations, determining his power and trajectory and stuff like that. So when Cannonball bounces off of the force field, Brainiac, he's going to collapse his force field back to around him personally, and that's going to allow Lightning Lad to unleash this really intense lightning bolt at Magic that's going to then arc to every other member of the New Mutants, electrocuting all of them.
No, because Magic can just block the lightning bolt with her soul sword. And that's when she teleports over to the Legionnaires in the middle of the group, and then she does this magic spin slash, kind of like Link from the Legend of Zelda games. She's like, ah! And all the Legionnaires get blasted away from her from this magic slash.
They get blasted away?
Yeah, with magic energy.
Okay. All right, so the Legionnaires, they all get blasted backward. But Bouncing Boy, he just bounces right back, like literally, slamming right into Magic, bouncing off of her, and then bouncing into Wolfsbane and the rest of the New Mutants, just like a pinball, knocking their asses over.
Okay, all right, so Bouncing Boy bounces everyone, except Magma, who protects herself by erupting like this geyser of lava from the ground right in front of her, and Bouncing Boy crashes into the geyser and it like lifts him into the air like a fountain, and he just gets third-degree burns all over his body and dies.
Oh, snap. Okay, actually, Supergirl, she's going to use her freeze breath to ice over that geyser pretty quickly. So while Bouncing Boy probably looks like Freddy Krueger about now, his burns aren't fatal. And Supergirl, she's going to carry him to safety, while Saturn Girl, meanwhile, she's going to take mental control of Magma and cause her to open a geyser beneath Sunspot.
That's not going to do anything. Sunspot, not only is he highly durable, like pretty much almost invulnerable, especially to heat, but like all the heat radiation from the magma would power him up, actually. What? So like after a quick dip in this lava shooting out of the ground, Sunspot's going to fly out and blast a solar blast at Cosmic Boy and just fry Cosmic Boy like a french fry.
Except Cosmic Boy would block that blast by transforming these metallic baubles that he has on his outfit into a large flat metal shield, which he's then going to push towards Sunspot, encasing the metal around his head so he can't see or even breathe.
That also doesn't matter to Sunspot because he doesn't need oxygen when he's in his solar mode because he's sustained by the photosynthesis. But if the metal's covering his face, he will be blinded. So while he's dealing with that, I'm going to say meanwhile, Wolfsbane, in full-on beast mode, like werewolf mode, she straight slashes off Chameleon Boy's antenna off of his head so quickly he doesn't have time to react.
Well, Chameleon Boy will just form new ones,
Ah, shit.
And then he's going to transform into a 8-foot Cthulhu type monster, and his tentacles are going to stretch around and bind Wolfsbane while his claws pierce into her abdomen, killing her. So she's out.
No, because all of a sudden, bzat, he gets a neural arrow straight into his head area, which stuns him. And that arrow came from Mirage, who fired it because she's always been protective of her friend Wolfsbane. And Chameleon Boy is stunned, which causes him to melt into a puddle, okay? And Wolfsbane escapes. And then Cypher rides over on this like techno-organic motorcycle that Warlock transformed into. And he reaches down and transmutes the Chameleon Boy puddle into like these techno-organic nanites that he just absorbs into himself.
Interesting. Okay. I'm going to say before Cypher gets to Chameleon Boy, though, Lightning Lad is going to intervene, and he's going to destroy Warlock's motorcycle with a lightning blast that's going to send nanite pieces flying everywhere. And that's going to allow Chameleon Boy to slither away as a puddle and recover. Meanwhile, Saturn Girl, she's taken mental control of Cannonball, and she's going to force him to plow straight into Wolfsbane at full speed, just breaking her body completely.
I don't know how Wolfsbane would actually get out of that. So she's probably out of the match, but Magic will create a portal to Limbo that Cannonball flies into, and that will cut off Saturn Girl's telepathic hold over him. And then he's going to fly back into the match through another one of Magic's portals. And while that's happening, all of a sudden, Wolfsbane, who was thought dead on the ground, rises up, and now she's like a zombie werewolf, okay? And she runs over to Saturn Girl, and she's immune to Saturn Girl's psychic probes. And she straight bites into Saturn Girl's face and just like chomps down on her, swallowing her whole and digesting her.
I'm sorry. What the fuck is going on here?
It's an illusion that Saturn Girl sees as a fear of hers,
What?
which is caused by Mirage, of course. So Mirage gets Saturn Girl to see Wolfsbane rise up from the dead and eat her. So Saturn Girl's freaking the fuck out, thinking she's being eaten. Of course, she's not really, but as she's freaking out, Mirage stabs a neural spear into Saturn Girl's back, which is going to paralyze her mind and just shut it down. So Saturn Girl is now out of the match.
No, dude. Saturn Girl would not fall for a mental illusion like that. She's an insanely powerful telepath.
Actually, she would, because Mirage's powers are empathic in nature, not telepathic. So it's like a sort of different psychic attack. And it totally works on telepaths because it manipulates their emotions, not necessarily their brain.
Well, that's stupid. But whatever, sure, Saturn Girl's out. Meanwhile, Supergirl, she is probably chasing down Cannonball since she can match his speed. And when she grabs him, she's going to steer both of them into the ground, causing this deep impact crater. And with Cannonball pinned in the ground, unable to move, he stops blasting. And that's when Supergirl sends a quick beam of heat vision right through his head, ending him and taking him out of this match.
Okay. So Cannonball's out. Okay. Meanwhile, Magma, she's going to turn into her magma form. And she's going to melt the metal off of Sunspot's face that Cosmic Boy had put there. And Sunspot's then going to fly over to Bouncing Boy and just finish burning him alive. Like, whatever Magma started, he just finishes. And then Sunspot kicks him like a charged soccer ball. And he kicks him so hard that, like, Bouncing Boy bounces to the other side of whatever country they're in.
That's fucked up.
Yeah, I guess that wasn't necessary, but I tried to get a soccer element in there with Bouncing Boy, because Sunspot's really good at soccer. Anyway, Cypher, at this point, has transformed himself into a nanite cloud using Warlock's power. And he swarms over to Chameleon Boy, and like he avoids his whole motion sensor antenna thing by translating their movement and determining their function. So like he stealthily gets around Chameleon Boy and then reforms and stabs Chameleon Boy with an arm sword, which infects Chameleon Boy with a techno-organic virus and converts him into technology.
Oh.
So Chameleon Boy is now a techno-organic being under Cypher's control, and he commands Chameleon Boy to take the form of a missile that Cypher then loads into his new arm cannon and fires at Lightning Lad, just obliterating both Chameleon Boy and Lightning Lad for a twofer explosion.
Nah, except Cosmic Boy saw Chameleon Boy being infected by the tiny metal nanites. And Cosmic Boy, he's generating this EMP blast that's going to shut down all of Cypher's nanites, which just drop to the floor like sand. So Chameleon Boy is gone, but so is Cypher. And Lightning Lad, meanwhile, he has Mirage in his grip, and he's overloading her with electricity until she's fried. So she's out.
Okay, Mirage is out, but Magma shoots a lava wave at Lightning Lad that hardens into stone on contact. So she encases Lightning Lad in obsidian, and he's trapped inside the stone, and he just suffocates to death.
Okay, well guess what? You done messed up, because Lightning Lad was Cosmic Boy's friend, so now Cosmic Boy, he's going to pull down a meteor from space, like the size of a fridge, and it's going to slam right down on Magma, sending her magma form just splattering everywhere.
Yeah, that would work if Magma couldn't control rock. She's just gonna break this meteor apart before it even touches her.
No, you said she controls, like, Earth rock, but not space rock. Like, this meteor is like an alien xenomineral.
Okay. All right. You may have got me there. Okay. So Magma's out then. She gets crushed by this meteorite. But then all of a sudden, magic drops from a portal above Cosmic Boy. She lands on him, and she stuns him with her soul sword. And then she snaps his neck with her Eldritch armor arm.
Oh, you mean her metal arm?
No. It's Eldritch armor. It's magic. It's not metal. Like, some artists may render it metal, but like sometimes they also render it just black, like black demon armor. Like her soul sword is made out of her soul, even though some artists draw it like metal, and some make her sword look more like a lightsaber, right? But either way, None of it's metal. Even if it looked like it and Cosmic Boy tried to manipulate it, he wouldn't be able to. It's magic. And he'll still be out of this match.
Well, that's dumb. So I have Supergirl and I have Brainiac 5 left, and you have Magic and Sunspot. So with so few people left, I'm going to say Sunspot blasts Supergirl with solar energy. Like, what? An idiot? And her Kryptonian cells are just going to absorb the attack. And when Sunspot is like, oh, fuck, that's when Supergirl is going to snatch him, drain him of the rest of his solar energy, and just hurl his ass right up into outer space powerless.
Oh, damn. Would he do that?
What else is he going to do?
Sure, I guess he wouldn't know that Supergirl absorbs solar energy. That's on him, I guess. So now I just have Magic left, and you have Brainiac and Supergirl. So Magic's going to take this fight to Limbo, okay? Because there, she's the Sorceress Supreme. She's the ruler. So she creates teleportation portals and just sends everyone to Limbo. And while there, this big King Ghidorah Hydra-looking demon just burns Supergirl alive with Hellfire. And I don't care how powered up Supergirl is, she's vulnerable to magic, like the rest of the Super family. So Supergirl's out. And now it's just Magic and Brainiac. And Magic telekinetically pulls off Brainiac's Legionnaire flight ring so that he can't fly. And then she sets up two portals suspended in midair that cause Brainiac 5 to just fall forever for all eternity in a portal loop in Limbo. And that is how the New Mutants win this match.
Okay, that was a good move. But I'm going to say, while Brainiac is falling in this portal loop, he's going to unleash a nanite grenade that he built from repurposed Warlock nanites. And when these nanites explode, they infect the demons in Limbo, converting them into tech under Brainiac's control. So Brainiac causes Limbo's demons to turn on Magic and devour her, ending that endless portal loop. So the Legion ends up winning, actually.
How did Brainiac repurpose these Warlock nanites if they were rendered inert by Cosmic Boy's EMP?
Oh, he just rebooted them and re-energized them using his own tech.
I don't know what a techno-organic infested demon would look like, but I think Magic would be able to purge the virus using her magic. Because magic trumps tech.
Now, you would think that, but you would be wrong, because tech, in fact, trumps magic. And I think Iron Man would agree with me.
Well, I think Doctor Strange would agree with me.
Well, Doctor Strange doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about.
All right, let's go ahead and leave the match there. Either Magic beats Tech, and she's able to purge the demons of the techno-organic virus and defeat Brainiac, or Tech beats Magic, and the infected demons eat Magic.
That is correct.
But either way, I don't know how Brainiac 5 is getting out of this infinite portal loop.
Well, once Magic is dead, it just ceases to exist. And, he'll find his way out of Limbo eventually, or he'll just freaking take over the whole dimension.
All right. Well, let's go ahead and leave the match there. We'll enter the stats and see what end scenario happens when we run the simulations.
AJ9K, hit it.
Inputting data, running calculations, processing results, simulations complete.
This was a fun match. Both teams are awesome, and they're pretty similar in that Legionnaires are kind of like mutants in a way, in that a lot of them really only have one power. I mean, except for Supergirl, but for the others, that was definitely reflected in the stats.
Yeah, Supergirl was the most powerful member out of either team.
But just barely more than Magic.
Yeah, the weakest member out of either team was Wolfsbane, which sucks, because I really like the character of Rain Sinclair. But statistically, she wasn't all that great. She's fast and can fuck you up with her claws and fangs. But the fact that, she operates mostly on instinct when she goes into her wolf form, she's not very versatile or anything like that. She just didn't hold up. Your weakest guy, though, was Bouncing Boy.
Yeah, not surprising. Definitely did not hold his own against Cannonball, his counterpart, as it were. He basically got obliterated by him in the stats.
You know what sucks, though, is that all of the Legionnaires have their flight ring, which grants them, interstellar flight speed. So the Legionnaires just wiped the floor with New Mutants when it came to the speed stat. That was the greatest disparity between the two teams, was that the Legionnaires were much faster overall because of their rings.
Yeah, and the biggest advantage that the New Mutants had was that they were much more durable. Some of my guys have force fields and stuff like that, but without those, they just didn't have the physicality that your guys did.
Yeah, I mean, like, Supergirl's invulnerable, but so is Cannonball when he's blasting. Sunspot's highly durable, and so is Cypher when he's merged with Warlock. Most of the New Mutants team did pretty well. Like, Magic won about 3/4 of all of her matches against the Legionnaires. Cannonball won about half, and then you have Wolfsbane, who only won 14% of her matches in total.
Supergirl was definitely my highest winner, also winning about 3/4 of her matches. My next most successful character was actually Cosmic Boy. And no surprise, Bouncing Boy lost a majority of his matches.
So, Jonathan, who do you think is winning this one, and why is it the New Mutants?
Why is it not the New Mutants? Because I'm voting for the Legion, 100%. And I'm not the only one who did. According to our Instagram poll, 67% of those who voted in favor of the Legion. Even though the New Mutants had a movie. That's terrible.
What does that make a difference?
I'm just saying, popularity-wise, you think people would have gone for the New Mutants. But people are smart. They know how powerful the Legion is.
Well, let's see if they're right. AJ9K, the results, please.
Here you are, sir.
All right, the winner in the team duel matchup between the Legion of Superheroes and the New Mutants is the Legion of Superheroes.
I'm sorry, what was that?
Legion of Superheroes won.
I can't understand you. One more time?
I said the punk-ass Legion of Superheroes.
Who are they?
Out of the thousands of simulated matches between the two teams, the Legion of Superheroes won 51.7% of the time, whereas the New Mutants only won 48.3% of the time.
That is close. I thought the Legion was going to stomp much more than that. Like, I figured the Legion was going to win this because the Legion is just powerful. I'm legitimately surprised how much of a good fight the New Mutants put up.
I'm not. I thought they were going to win.
Because you're dumb.
But the fact that they barely lost is something to be proud of, I think. I would have preferred that they won. If the Legionnaires didn't have their flight rings, I think the New Mutants would have actually taken this.
Well, too bad for you. They do. So, better luck next time.
I'm not going to need luck for our next matchup. I got skills.
You got Skittles, and that's it.
I also have Skittles. What of it?
Well, that does it for this duel. AJ9K, help close us out.
Thanks for listening to Dynamic Duel. Visit the show's website at dynamicduel.com and follow us on Instagram at Dynamic Duel Podcast. You can support the show on Patreon at patreon.com/dynamicduel and joining a tier that works for you, or by rating and reviewing Dynamic Duel on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Podchaser, or on our website. Don't forget to listen to the other shows in the Dynamite Podcast Network, including Max Destruction, Senjo World, and Console Combat.
In our next matchup, where Joseph thinks he will need no luck, but will in fact need all of the luck in the world, we will pit Bizarro versus Abomination, the evil counterparts to Superman and the Hulk, respectively.
That'll be a good one. I'm really looking forward to that one.
But that does it for this episode. We want to give a big thanks to our executive producers, John Starosky,
Zachary Hepburn,
Dustyn Balcom,
Miggy Matanguihan,
Nathaniel Wagner,
Levi Yeaton,
Austin Wesolowski,
AJ Dunkerley,
Nick Abanto,
Scott Camacho,
Gil Camacho,
Adam Speas,
Dean Maleski,
Devin Davis,
Joseph Kersting,
Josh Leiner,
Mike Williams,
and Paul Graves for helping make this podcast possible. We'll talk to you guys next week.
Up, and away!
True believers.
Rejected Legion of Superheroes members include the vegan hero, Soy Boy, the demonic heroine, Darm Girl, and the shrinking heroine, Small Lass.